초롱 지향하마세 리히지오리 티 tubac ta pa tubac que yeng tel tuko serisi just
what they felt was flashback from a previous life, and so he was getting bits and pieces of information and it was coming through.
아니 dinheiro nesse gente já era muito chique né so changa hoje já so do so kalau na ro
It was necessary for him to go to India and explore that aspect of it.
I remember thinking, like, you know, this is my brother, but who is he? I have no doubt in my mind that he's a Thuk Kar.
Tibet, terre de légendes et de mystères, blottie au creux des plus hautes montagnes du monde. Tibet, terre pacifique et vulnérable, longtemps convoitée par son colossal voisin chinois, qui l'envahit il y a plus de 30 ans, s'efforçant de faire disparaître les traces de son ancestrale culture et acculant à l'exil des milliers de ses habitants, dont le plus illustre, Tenzin Gyatso, 14e Dalaï Lama, chef spirituel et temporel des Tibétains, prix Nobel de la paix. Depuis ces sombres jours de 1959, la diaspora tibétaine s'est vaillamment réinstallée un peu partout dans le monde, et principalement en Inde, où de vastes étendues de terre ont été offertes aux Tibétains pour qu'ils puissent y reconstruire leur grand monastère. Au lieu de leur vie spirituelle, ces monastères comptent de nouveau des milliers de moines, jeunes et vieux, appelés lamas. Depuis plus de 13 siècles, le bouddhisme s'est implanté au cœur de ce peuple, dont les croyances sont fortement marquées par le cycle sans fin de la naissance, de la mort et de la renaissance. L'être humain y est emprisonné dans la chaîne des réincarnations par le poids de ses actes et tente à se libérer de son karma, aspirant à l'éveil. Parmi ceux qui sont parvenus à cette libération, certains choisissent de se réincarner de nouveau, au nom de la compassion, afin d'aider les humains à cheminer encore un peu plus loin, vers la lumière. Ces grands maîtres réincarnés, les Tibétains les appellent toulkou. Ils leur vouent une vénération infinie et mettent le plus grand soin à les découvrir dès leur plus jeune âge, où qu'ils se trouvent. Depuis les bouleversements de l'exil, on assiste par ailleurs à une fascinante évolution des traditions bouddhistes tibétaines. alors qu'ils ont été coupés du reste du monde pendant des siècles, voilà qu'aujourd'hui les Tibétains reconnaissent plusieurs de leurs maîtres réincarnés ailleurs que parmi les leurs, jusqu'en Occident. Comme si leur antique sagesse avait en cette sombre fin de millénaire quelque chose d'important à partager avec le monde entier. L'une de ces réincarnations, un jeune homme aujourd'hui dans la vingtaine, porte désormais le nom tibétain de Tenzin Sherab. Comme les enfants du Tibet, il a grandi dans un pays de neige et de froidure, ailleurs qu'au pied de l'Himalaya cependant, dans les rues d'une grande ville nord-américaine. C'est à Montréal, vers l'âge de 4 ans, que Tenzin commence à faire des rêves bien particuliers.
At that point, Tenzin just said, I have a Geshe too. His name is Geshe Kunawa. Well, it sounded to me like Geshe Kuna. And I said, yeah. And I said, who's he? And he says, he's my Geshe. He lives on my planet.
And then he spoke about one teacher in particular and described the house where this teacher lived and his room and the pictures on the walls and so on, and the area around there, and in great detail.
I was sitting there kind of shocked because he'd never talked like that before. And those were names that I was not familiar with in Tibetan Buddhism. Mahakala, yes, but not Mahakala Nakpo and Geshe Kuna, and I thought he was just a kid making up names. So it was actually just the way he looked and the way he was very different from just somebody telling a little story. It was almost as if he was in a kind of a wakeful dream. And I spoke to His Holiness Karmapa after about that, and he said, yes, that's what you call recall memory experience. It's like a flashback.
I kept reflecting on this story, and I said, you know, my son has quite an imagination. And he said, yeah. He said, most children have, good imagination. And I said, yeah. I said, he told a story after you left, and he said, oh, yeah. So I told him this story, and he sat right up and said, who said this? So I said, my son. So he said, well, look, this is not a child who tells stories like this. And said, who is he? So I said, he's my son, he's at the house. So he said, I know these people. So he said, go and bring this child here, I want to see him. So I went back and brought Tenzin, and Tenzin told the stories to him, and he was really overjoyed, And he said he's going back to India and he's going to research all these stories because he knows some of the people in these stories.
And then when he was about 8, we received a letter from him and from Sera Monastery saying that he was the incarnation, that they had contacted the state oracle, they had contacted the Dalaï Lama, and that they felt that Tenzin was the reincarnation of a Geshe Jatsu who never left Tibet, who was a great practitioner of Dharma and scholar. He was a great debater, and that they wanted him in their monastery, they wanted him to come back to Sera Monastery.
When my parents first told me that my brother was a toulkou, I was just confused. I didn't understand it really. All I knew was that he was just telling me such weird stuff about his dreams and these strange names that kept popping up everywhere, and that he wanted to go to a monastery. And I just thought that, I didn't know, I just thought maybe the Dharma rubbed off on him too much or something.
My sister and I were told to call him a different name all of a sudden. And we had to call him by a Tibetan name, Tenzin, instead of Elijah, which we always called him Elijah. And we also were told that he was toulkou, and we had to treat him with a lot of respect. And for me, that was really tough, actually. Like, I thought, what the heck is going on? I mean, first of all, I had my parents all to myself before him, right? And then suddenly, like, we have to put him on a throne and everything and treat him, like, with all this respect. And as far as I was concerned, all he did was wreck my stuff, you know, come into my room, destroy my things, and, like, have fights with me. So I thought, what's so special about him?
The excitement about the news that Tenzin had been recognized as an incarnate Lama, or that there was at least something very unusual and wonderful about him, coming from a very highly respected meditation master, gave us a very exhilarated feeling. And so we were kind of riding on that wave, you know, until this letter arrived. And the letter came from a monastery we had never heard of before, saying that since Tenzin really belongs with them, would we please return him as soon as possible?
It was kind of an honor, or it was something special, yet my whole Western side rejected it because it just goes against our tradition. You don't take a child who's 8 years old and send them off to a monastery, especially in a country like India. So the answer at that point was definitely no. So at that point we started to become very stressed out by it.
I felt very much apprehensive. I thought, like, who are these people? You know, I've never seen them or heard of them before, and suddenly they want him to go there as if he's theirs and he's not ours. So I was very confused about that.
So I remember one time going up to Tenzin's room when we lived in the country just outside of Montreal, and I remember he was in his room and he was crying, and I just, it's very vivid in my mind, the scene. And I said, "What are you crying about?" And he said, "I'm crying because I can't resist my karma." And he was in the middle of writing a letter to Karma Tinley Rinpoche, the first Rinpoche to recognize him from Toronto. And I said, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I wrote this letter." And in the letter, he says, "Dear Karma Tinley, I love you, but I can't resist my karma."
And like when a kid says something like that, it's really powerful. So she was pretty much blown away by that, and she thought, well, maybe it is his karma and he has to go. And after all, he was described by the Dalai Lama as being one of these, a toulkou who self-recognizes, which means that he recognized himself. He brought about his own recognition through telling people the dreams that he had and talking about various events and doing these things like talking in Tibetan in his sleep and stuff. So it was all almost as if he wanted it that way. He'd planned it.
Tenzin was, I think, 14. The Dalai Lama said, "I would like very much if Tenzin could go to his monastery now."
Tenzin was pretty much ready to either go there and begin an education or pretty much lose it, because there were no situations in North America that we could find that would accommodate him properly to develop into a Lama.
They decided for him to go, and I just felt really, really sad.
And that's when it really hit me that he was going away. So I said, "How long is he leaving for?" And she said, "Maybe 10 years, I don't know." And India seemed so far away.